Oops, cards are still coming. Welcome, everyone, to this month's Planning and Zoning Board meeting. There's a lot of commotion going on. As it appears, there's a lot of interest in blue cards these days. I seem to be getting a lot of them. So if you are wishing to speak to one of the cases that's on the agenda today, I would ask that you'd fill them out if you haven't already. Okay, work it in. Sorry for the silence. Are there any more cards working their way forward? We have a couple more? Okay. While they're working their way forward, I'll just mention that the first item on our agenda today will be the consent agenda. Let's see.
4A, that joins the crowd.
What is this one? That's the same thing, so we're the same one. Okay.
Except just those two cases, right?
Six, 7, 13, 14, 15. Oh, that's a lot of cards. What's that?
We were just double checking.
I think we're fine. Okay.
3B.
All right. Here we go.
We're okay now.
Are we good? Okay. Thank you. It looks like everybody today wants to speak. This is going to be fun and interesting. But that's okay. It's what it's all about. What we have then remaining on our consent agenda, two more cards. Oops. Three more.
That's this pile here. The
Okay.
planner and the zoning case.
There's another one. Is that card coming forward? She's the applicant. Okay. Oops.
Yeah, this one goes on this pile.
Okay. Thank you for the cards. We've made note of them, and the applicable cases have been pulled from the consent agenda. Michelle, at this time, then, would you like to read what is left on our consent agenda and present it to the board?
All right, the first item on the consent agenda is item 2A. It's the approval of our minutes from the December 20th and December 21st study session and regular hearing. And item 3A, case Z16-061 in District 6, the 7,300 through 7,500 blocks of East Ray Road, approximately 5.22 acres. This is a site plan review to allow for the development of an industrial building, and the staff recommendation is approval with conditions.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
that.
Thank you, Dane. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Okay. I was going to say, all of those that are here, for those that have been approved, are welcome to leave, but I don't think anybody's leaving. So that leaves us with three items to discuss this afternoon. The first would be case Z16-02 in District 3, the 2200 block of West Ella Street, the north side, located west of Dobson Road and north of Main Street. The request would be allow for the development of a multi-residential building And the recommendation's approval with conditions. So at this time, I'll turn time over to staff. John, I see that look in your eye.
Yes, I was just wondering if, with regard to items 4A and 5A.
Shall I go ahead
if
and
you want to go
announce?
ahead and at least see what the people want to do on that, so maybe they don't have to stay through 3B if they don't want to go ahead and speak this time.
Okay, I'd be happy to do that. Yeah, actually, we have enough blue cards up here. I think we could assemble a book. We haven't read them yet, but that's just fine. What we are doing, the bulk of the cases here pertain to items Z16-056, and which would be the 4A and the 5B on the agenda that you've had a copy of, dealing with the Warner Enclave. Some changes have occurred since our study session yesterday, and at this point, we are inclined to continue the case until the February 15th meeting. That was a recommendation of staff, and it's our understanding the applicant is in support of doing that. That said, I know there's at least 15 in here that wish to speak to that case. So this is where we're at. We are going to postpone the hearing to next month, assuming the board chooses, unless you do, to support that. And we would ask that those that are wishing to speak today, if you would be so inclined, is to come back next month and share your thoughts. I know there's going to be some efforts between the applicant and the city on a few things, so there's more to be discussed. Having said that, since you are here, if there is anyone who feels strongly that they wish to speak to those cases, you're welcome to do so. You have that right. But we're not going to discuss it otherwise. Is that correct, John? Any other thoughts you would have on this?
Yes, Jerry. Generally, again, we don't know what might come up from a citizen that may necessitate some response, but the applicant has voiced their desire to us that they, based on some things that transpired over the last day or so, they do want that opportunity to continue working with neighbors. So things may change before we actually take action on it. So that's why it's being continued, and that's why comments made today may or may not be beneficial because the project may change some based on the ongoing discussions between the applicant and the citizens. They have made an effort to be here today, and so they may want to go ahead and speak today, which is fine, but then they may have to come back next month anyway. So just kind of letting them know that I thought would be a good idea, because as they sit through B, they get there. There may not be that much to say, and they want to go ahead and leave now if they can postpone their discussion until we have a revised application next month.
And my inclination is, since we are going to continue it, there won't be any discussion from staff, and we're not going to ask the applicant to present anything. So it'll just be a matter of public expressing opinions on a case that hasn't been discussed publicly in advance of their opinions, okay? Again, we're going to go back to the first case, but is there anyone here associated with these last two cases is wishing to speak today? We'd be happy to put that in. Yes.
So I guess the basic thing is, then go ahead and sit through 3B. We'll get to there, and you'll have the chance to speak when we get to that point, because it'll be at that point then that the board will take action. But so anybody who feels like they can wait till next month to speak, they want to go ahead and leave.
More than welcome to come back. In fact, we invite that if you haven't been able to resolve any differences or misunderstandings or questions that you might have in the interim. Okay, that having been said, then, let me turn the time back over to the staff, if you wouldn't mind making the presentation on case Z16-061.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the board.
I misspoke. C6, no, that's correct. Go right ahead. You're correct.
Okay. I'm 3062, yes. Okay. The project before you is a 60-unit senior living apartment complex located at 2230 West Ellis Street, which is north of Main Street and west of Dobson Road. This is a proposal for a 3-story, 40-foot-high building with a parking garage on the ground level and a mix of 1- and 2-bedroom units with community space. The second level is built over the ground floor and again has a mix of units with this level including a courtyard that provides amenities for the residents. The third level will be 1- and 2-bedroom units, and both the second and third levels have an open viewing area that faces to the south. The site has access from 2 driveways on Ellis Street, and a 6-foot-high masonry fence surrounds the perimeter of the site. The applicant has met all the development standards required for the residential multiple dwelling district, and this project was discussed at the Design Review Board work session on January 10th, and the overall design, materials, and color were well received by that board, and they made a few minor comments and suggestions to the design. The applicant has completed the citizen participation plan and has also held a neighborhood meeting on December 5th of 2016. The project complies with all the guiding principles of the Mesa 2040 General Plan, and the development is located within the West Main Street Area Plan and is part of the Transit-Oriented Development Corridor, and it meets all the development principles for those plans. And because of this, staff recommends approval for this project.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from board members at this point for staff? If not, I'll turn some time over to the applicant. If you'd come forward, please, state your name and record for the...
Good afternoon. I'm Joe Ortega. I'm the Executive Vice President of Yes Housing, and we are the applicant for this 60-unit development, proposed development on Ella Road. And we have, when we got started in the process after we got the property under option, we immediately contacted the city council member in that district to discuss what we were planning to do here. Mr. Kavanaugh and his staff met with us and gave us his support, and then we met with his successor, Mr. Winkle, and then we met with the mayor and his chief of staff, and the mayor said that it was critical that we work with the planning department and the building department to make sure that that it just doesn't meet the code requirements, but that it be something that would be well received in the city of Mesa, and that he would reserve his support until after we do that. He also asked that we visit with a West Mesa group. I don't remember their name. What was the gentleman's name? It was a Jerry Lewis. D. Montague and so forth. And we met with them and have talked to them a few times, and to tell them what we were planning to do. And then we met with all except one city councilor who passed, both current and then the previous city councilors. We've been very diligent in working with staff, understanding the code. The architect that we have, Perlman & Company, has done several developments here in Mesa, and they made sure that we're building within the requirements of the code, the height, the depth, the type of building, the type of material that we're using, so forth. We look forward to getting a tax credit allocation, because this is an affordable development for senior citizens, for elderly 55 and over. We're not going to use the provision in the law that lets us make a certain number of the units for non-seniors, because we just don't want to. The market study showed that there is still very strong demand for this in that area. The low-income tax credits that make this possible is an owner's equity. It isn't a grant. And go ahead. Okay, yeah. And we just ask for your support and on this property. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any questions for the applicant? All right, we may call you back in a few minutes
Okay,
to respond
sounds
to some
good.
of the questions. Before we go on to the public, staff, if you wouldn't mind answering a question for me at this point, and that is, in terms of this case, we're really not asking anything. It's a right by use in terms of
It's
the
a use by
height,
right,
the
that is
use.
correct.
Is there anything out of the ordinary other than the fact they're just
They
looking
have
for
asked for
a...
no deviations to the standards for development. It's, the height is an allowable use, is a permitted use in that zoning district. It is
Densities?
40 feet, however, the properties to the north
Yes.
that are adjacent are very, if you'll look at the site plan, those are very deep lots.
Okay.
So the houses are fronted out to the street, the next street over. So the height here would the very minimal impact, I would say, because of the lots are so deep.
Okay, I just want to get some clarification, because we have a number of cards on this case, so we're going to listen to here in just a minute. I think we've got about 7 or 8 now. And I have a hunch we're going to hear things like we don't like the use, or we don't like the height, it's too much. And in reality, we really don't have the discretion to act on that, because that is a right by use. I wanted to bring, is that correct, sir?
Chair, board members, essentially that is correct, although, with regard to the height, yes, the height is allowed. If there were reasons maybe to adjust some heights, cause some step downs or whatever because of existing surrounding conditions, that, that may be appropriate to look at some, minor modifications along that line. But in general, no, the use is allowed, it meets all the zoning requirements, so there's little discretion.
Okay,
with regard to those
very good, because normally I was going to say, when I see something like that, they're always asking for something. Give me, if you would, a variance of some sort, and I don't see anything here. I just wanted to have some clarity to that, so as the public comes to speak, they have that in mind. So that having been said, we'd like to turn the time over to the public members. Now, we have a number of these, and because there's so many, I would ask that you would respect the time limit of 3 minutes, and hopefully we've got a timer that's working somewhere, or somebody help me with that. I will take these one at a time. And I might also mention, but I will recite again, that they're all in opposition of the project. The first one I have is from Salvador Acosta, who is opposed, and you wish to speak. If you'd come forward, please. Is there an interpreter here somewhere? That might help? The best you can, that'd be great. Again, if we can have a name and an address and for the record.
Salvador Acosta, 122 North Main.
Thank you.
Pues no, yo no sabía de que iban a hacer todavía no sé lo que quieren hacer. Me están informando apenas hace 2 días.
He just found out about this 2 days ago, and so he's not sure exactly what's going on,
Okay.
just that they're going to build
Sí.
something.
Sí, ahora estoy aquí porque pues ahora no trabajé, es mi día off y me dicen, oye, dije, no sé nada, no
Yeah.
sé
And
nada y no.
Yeah, and so we told him that there was a meeting today, and so he wanted to come down to find out what's going on, and he's opposed to it, obviously, and so that's kind of why he's here.
Okay, does he feel he has an understanding as to what the concept of the project is? We've had staff talk about.
He doesn't, no.
Oh, that is correct. Have you explained it to him, translated to him as you've understood it?
He's my father-in-law. I live at the property also,
Okay.
and I've got a blue card there.
Fair enough.
Would you like him to sit down, just pull mine out, I can talk?
You might as well. I think the thing
Yeah.
is, I want to make sure he has an understanding if he's still opposed.
He doesn't.
Fair
Oh,
enough.
he's still opposed. We thought we snuffed this out 10 years ago, roughly,
Okay, hold on
Yeah.
just a second.
the property off the
Which one?
Blaine McCone.
Yes, here you are. Why don't we do that? You both can stand there, Blaine, go right ahead if you'll give us your name and again and speak.
Yeah, my name is Blaine McCone. I didn't hear about this 2 days ago. I just found out about it a couple of hours ago.
Okay,
I'm sorry. Oh, same address, 122 North May.
okay.
Apologize. I just found out, like I said, I've just found out about it a couple hours ago. He found out about it a couple days ago.
Okay.
I took the rest of the day off to make sure that I come down here and I didn't have anything prepared because I thought we were done with this roughly 10 years ago. I didn't know that somebody else was planning on putting a 40, 50-foot building back by
Was
the
there a
house.
sign posted on the property? I'm sure. there
On
was.
our property?
On the property. There was notice, I'm assuming. Mr.
I
Ortega.
don't, okay, so where that street is on Ella, I don't come in that way.
Oh, okay.
I come in another way, so I would have had no notice as far as,
Fair.
if I go
But not
down
on-
posting.
But not on May. You live on May then, right?
Correct.
Okay, so the.
I come down
side is
First
on
Street.
Ella, which is east and west, and you live on a north-south road, is that correct?
I'm sorry?
You live on a north-south road on May, that's correct. The sign is on Ella, which is the east and
East-west.
west one. I mean, it's like a block away, so, yeah, I mean,
So in the fact, the posting was there, the public notice was given. So my comment would be is, do you have anything you'd like to share other than the fact you're opposed to the project? Do you need some more information about the project to formulate an opinion, or is that already?
Yeah, I'd like some more information also, because I still think that there's possibly I'm a personal injury attorney. I'm not a property lawyer by any means, but I certainly have friends, and I'd like to consult with them to see if there's anything that we can do. We certainly don't want a 40 or 50-foot building. You know, that community, it's come a long ways, that part of the community out there in Mesa. It's single, for the most part. There are some MDUs in the area, but putting up something like that, I mean, it's just, I can't see any good of it coming from it. It's going to spike traffic levels. I think, you know, it's already a high crime area in the first place. We've had, multiple murders there in over the course of the last probably 5-6 years. One of them just as early as, the last one I heard about was probably 10, 11 months ago, stabbing in the apartment. So I just have so many different things going through my head right now as far as you're going to put an elderly community in there, have them go walk around the neighborhood at night. I don't think that's the best place for it in the first place for their safety. But then when I match that with, well, we're gonna have a 50-foot building now, 20 foot off our backyard with 40 windows overlooking it, that's not what we signed up for when we purchased the home. And I understand that it might be, as far as zoning goes and everything, it might be 100%, but I just don't think it's taking into consideration a lot of other factors that I haven't even had a chance to put together because, like I said, I just found out about this an hour ago.
Okay. Well,
Maybe 2 hours ago tops, but certainly not enough to sit down and really think things through.
okay. All right, thank you. Anything else then? You'll hear a little bit, you've heard about the project, you'll hear a little bit more, but we'll continue on. But I do know that, and staff help me on this, that there has been adequate public notice as required by law. Is that correct? So,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Let's see. Next call to the stand, Mr. Montague, D. Montague. You are opposed to the project. If you would again state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. My name's Dee Montague. I live at 553 North Orange Street, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I've been here before, and I want to just start by telling a little story. I bought the property I live in now on Orange Street 41 years ago, and I should have bought the back lot. It was also zoned residential. Real nice man came along. His name was Grant Gifford. He was a developer. He wanted to build some apartments there. I was naive. I didn't object. And on a piece of property that's 100 feet deep and 125 feet wide, he built a 2-story, 10-unit apartment complex that has forever changed our lives since then. At first, it was pretty nice. Now it's our kids have to be cleared out of the backyard when the police are doing an explosion bomb in there to get the drug dealers out. And so it doesn't fit in our neighborhood. Likewise, the neighbors that I talk to in West Mesa as a member of the Mesa Grande Community Alliance say they don't want a 40-foot structure built right in their backyards. Now, I did meet with Mr. Ortega and Ms. Hotchkiss, and they were very nice, very kind, willing to explain. I don't know how many people received a notice of the community meeting. There were 4 people that came to it. I was there at that community meeting. I've consistently told them, listed the objections that I have, but for today and for this hearing, it doesn't fit the neighborhood, number one. Number two, it doesn't fit the general plan of Mesa, the 2020 general plan, to have balanced housing. when it gets to the point where we're before the council talking about low-income housing tax credits that Mr. Ortega brought up, it doesn't match the needs of the balanced housing and the neighborhood need to have per household income raised. We're suffering severely because of that. So if you want to understand what the neighbors are talking about, and I'd point out that there were, at the public meeting, there were 4 people there, 2 opposed to it, 1 ambivalent, and 1 against, and one in favor of it. The man in favor of it said the reason he was in favor of it is he didn't want something good to come in there that would raise the property values and raise his taxes. And so he was happy to have a low-income project come in, which I thought was kind of an interesting argument to be in favor of it. There are more people here today opposed to it than even came to those meetings, so I think that the public interest ought to be considered. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Claude Clough, who is also opposed and wishes to speak. If you'd come forward, again, state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Claude Clough. I live at 2028 West 2nd Street, and I'm opposed. I just don't think we need another big, ugly building like La Mesita in the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Jose Flores. Did I say that correct? Florian, thank you. You are opposed. If you'll, again, present your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Jose Florian. I live in 2057 West 1st Street. And I write here to oppose because, you know, as a owner of the house, what I can see is my heritage take away and my family heritage take away. Because I can show you some pictures that I can taken from my house, like in different times. Where it is a sunset. And where they are building, you know, they gonna block our view and our kids' view. So where we are fighting or we are opposed is because that building is gonna block completely our sunset. So for me, it's when I have a stress day and I go into my house, I don't wanna see another brown wall in front of my street. So that's what I opposed, because they're gonna block in, you know, where we are taking pictures, like you can see it, you know, we're taking a lot of pictures from sunsets, like really often. So that's my point. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Next up, we have Randall Harding, also opposed. You do not wish to speak, but correct? Okay. Let's see. And if I've got all the cards, correct me if I have forgotten anyone. I also then, as the last card, have Norman Johnson, who is opposed and does not wish to speak. Is that correct? Correct. Okay, thank you. Have I missed anybody who wishes to speak? Okay. At this point, Mr. Ortega, I'll invite you back up to address some of the issues that you heard expressed by the applicant, by the public, please.
You know, Mr. Chairman, it's always difficult, and as I said at the planning meeting, the study session, I've been in your shoes before, so I know what that's like. This is a senior development. It's going to be a secure development for the seniors. We believe that they deserve to live in and have more moderate rent It isn't a giveaway. By any means, they're going to have to pay their rent. And we take great pride in our developments. We did have a public meeting. Everybody within the required area got a letter. I believe they sent out, I don't remember how many letters it was. And there was only 4 people that showed up, 4 or 5 people that showed up. I don't remember the comment from the person that supported us that would lower his taxes. There was another person that was ambivalent. We also got a phone call from one of the neighbors that said that he welcomed the project, and that was also passed on to the planning staff. We stand by the development, and for your comments, we believe that we're within your code. We've met with your staff. We're available certainly during the design phase to meet with the residents, and nobody ever showed up, and I wish we would have had some more input then.
Okay, thank you. Generally, the comments fall under one direction, which is basically doesn't fit our neighborhood and then also doesn't fit the general plan. We do know it's a use by right. We've already discussed that prior to the public input. So what would you say to the neighbors that feel you don't belong there? Any thoughts you might have for them?
Well, this is a neighborhood that is truly in transition. There are apartments, not just La Mesita in front of it, to the west. There's 2 or 3 apartment developments that have been there for 40 years. And this will be brand new. It'll be a nice-looking development. Go ahead, Randy.
And I think to continue on that point, that it's an area that needs revitalization and will be revitalized. All the surrounding areas are also zoned the RM4, so there's a potential that that area could change in the future, and those are zoned the same as ours. Even though they're underdeveloped right now, they're zoned to do exactly what we plan to do.
Yes.
Okay.
And a lot of their concerns are really with, they should have been vocal at when the zoning code was written this way, and I've been through that before too, and so.
Chair?
Yes.
I have a question. Just for purposes, you had mentioned it'll be a secured site. Is it you're going to use wall around the perimeter? Is the entrances gated, or is it open to?
No, it'll be gated.
It'll be gated?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Yeah, it's a senior housing development. It's, we take security very seriously.
Right. Let's see. While you're at the podium, board members, any questions for the applicant? Yes, Tim.
And this could be applicant or staff. If so many of the neighbors didn't know about it, is there something, that process of letting the neighborhood know what's going on that's not functioning as well as it could be? If there's more people at this meeting now than ever came to any of the things, because you're right. I mean, you should have the right as a developer to get all the feedback you want at the beginning, right? Like no one wants to go through all the process and get all this far and then have a bunch of people come up and oppose it. So I just have, I guess, a more general question on that. Like, how come so few people knew about it or were able to attend the earlier meetings and are just now being able to voice their opinion?
Chair, Board Member Boyle, from the staff perspective, from what we have been able to see, from what was been submitted to us, they have followed all the standard citizen participation procedures, and we believe all those requirements have been met.
Well, and I guess that's the larger question. Like, are those adequate now to really let everybody know if it's this low a number of people in the area versus how many mailers go out or something like that?
The standard on the citizen participation is to mail to all property owners within 1,000 feet, and then the registered neighborhoods and homeowners groups half mile. And so which is more than the public notice, which is 500 feet for this meeting itself.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess that's the standard, but in this particular case, it doesn't seem like it worked very well. That's you know, are we hitting a point now where less people check their mail and they check their email or Facebook? Like, do we need to kind of look at some of the other ways of letting citizens know so that no one gets this far along the process and then suddenly has a lot of opposition to it? Or is there any precedent for that happening anywhere?
The citizen participation process, you know, certainly can modify over time as new technologies come along. There's no specific requirements in the ordinance. We leave it up to the applicant to choose a way that seems reasonable for the area, whether it's meetings, mailers, knocking on doors, and kind of work along the lines of whatever they do. The standard is the mail in and hold the meeting, which is what they did here, and typically works well.
I do have a question regarding a citizen notice. Do the notices just go to the property owner, not if it's a rental, would the resident be notified?
Not directly. Chair Board Member Duff, for the citizen participation, it is just to property owners and then the registered neighborhoods and so forth. When we get to the public hearing, then the sign gets posted on the property. So certainly anybody that's driving by, lives in the area, can be aware of it, whether they're an owner or a renter.
So that could
Could
be
bring more people at this point.
You know,
part of the
another
issue if
thought I would
there's a lot of
We have a
rentals.
larger turnout here than we did at the community meeting. It must be that there's somebody here that did some a very aggressive public outreach to generate this interest. You know, the question be is, you know, could have done that much earlier. But on that issue, did you have anything else to say, John? I look like I'm taking words out of your
Chair
mouth.
Board Member, on a slightly different notes than that topic, but some of the discussion that has gone on at this point, I just wanted to kind of reiterate again. At some point in the past, we haven't looked back fully in the records to see when it was. We think it may have been original city zoning. This area got zoned to multi-residence. It's certainly been that way for many years. We don't have any case history showing that change. And so that entire block, all the way up to Dora, and probably I think that area just north of Dora, everything on the west side of May, that whole area is zoned RM4. It's not developed that way. A lot of it is developed with single-family homes, and that creates, unfortunately, at this point, a little bit of a rub, a challenge for development. We have a big vacant site. They have proposed a development that is very consistent with that zoning. The surrounding property is zoned. It could all be redone at some point in the future to a similar type development. But today it is an established single-family neighborhood with people that own their homes and have their lives there and certain expectations for what they want to see in their neighborhood. And so balancing those is part of the reason we as staff don't just approve the site plan. It comes to this public body for your review and discussion. Are there, again, as I mentioned before, those tweaks, adjustments that should be made to the site plan so it better fits in with the neighborhood? It's not a whole-scale change. You can only do a single-story, single house in the middle of this to fit the neighborhood. And it's got to be more than that because the zoning ordinance that's there and the zoning district allows for a lot more than that. But it certainly is within this board's purview to think, is it the building positioned to the best way it could be? Is it orientations should be step downs or whatever, bigger screen walls or any of those types of things that go on to help mitigate any issues that might go on that affects the existing neighborhood.
I appreciate that. So where I wanted to go with your second comment here, but let me just go back a little bit just for my benefit. I don't recall what the general plan shows. Does it show for? I'm glad you brought that back up because I did meant to mention that. The general plan and the West Main Street plan do anticipate, largely based on the existing zoning, that this would be developed with multi-residence of some type in the future. Mr. Montague did bring up another concern of the general plan as we get too much of a concentration of one development type in a given area and try to keep those spread around. Is adding this multi-residence in this location detrimental in that regard? I don't really think so compared to other areas we've seen, but that's also something that's better to address at the zoning stage. We already have the multi-residence zoning here. It allows this use, it allows these heights, and so we have less ability to address that particular issue. Which brings me right back to what I'm a little confused and a little challenged on what our role here is today, because in terms of does it fit, that's a very emotional and personal question, and a lot of different opinions on that. And yes, it is a very established neighborhood, but the zoning does allow this by right. We've talked about that. In reality, all we were deciding today as we discuss this is not so much does it fit the neighborhood as is the site plan appropriate.
Chair?
Is that correct? Do you have any other thoughts on
Chair?
that? Yes.
I just wanted to point a couple of things out, exactly like what he was saying about the uses and the zoning is already there. Some things, if you look on the site plan, just to take note, are the requirements of the zoning district and
Okay.
what they're providing, which is in an excess of requirements. So for instance, they're allowed by 40 feet. So say anybody, any use came in here that's allowed on the site, whether you like the site plan design or not, it's allowed 40 feet, and they're providing 40 feet. The front setback is 20 feet. They're providing greater than that. They're doing around 60 feet. The sides, they're required 45 feet. At one side, they have 45 feet. On another side, they have 88 feet. In the rear, they're allowed up to 45 feet, and they're providing 60 feet. So in all the setback instances, they're providing a greater setback than a standard site could go in there and develop.
Interesting.
So in essence, also with the 40 feet, when you do that, as you get further inside and you're further away, the setbacks don't look, it doesn't, the height starts to look shorter than it actually is. And then also they're doing 40 feet here. A standard residential house is allowed up to 30 feet. So it's a 10-foot difference. So when you're looking at what is allowed and what's provided, I mean, the use is always, but that's not what we're discussing right now.
Well, yeah, so that would be the thing we ought to be talking about here is what is our role in making this decision? It kind of came out yesterday in our study session. What's germane to us? And it sounds like the issues being raised by the public are not that.
Yes.
Yes,
So,
sir.
Chair and board members, the zoning ordinance section 1169.5 sets out the review criteria for site plans.
Okay.
And so it tells us what we should look at. And there are 7 points. I don't want to, went on to the next page. Okay, I stopped too soon. To going back, looking through those. And so some of those that may apply a little bit to this particular project. Project shall be consistent with and conform to adopted general plan and applicable sub-area plans. We've reviewed that, and we believe that it is, and consistent with all the development standards of the ordinance, which we feel like this is, and we've reviewed those, and consistent with any specific conditions of approval placed on the zoning of property. Well, we don't have none of those in this case. Overall design of the project, including its scale, massing, site plan, exterior design, and landscaping, will enhance the appearance and features of the project site and surrounding and natural and built environment. So there you start to get into a few things. Is this, as it's been designed, enhance the appearance and features of the built environment in that area? The project site plan is appropriate to the function of the project and provides a suitable environment for occupants. Again, we believe that it does do that. Project details, colors, materials, and landscaping are internally consistent, fully integrated with one another. Again, we think that site plan works well, the building works well. Project is compatible with neighboring development by avoiding big differences in building scale and character between developments on adjoining lots in the same zoning district. And that's where, again, we get in that little bit of a conflict here. Given what's there today, there is a big change, but by what's allowed by the zoning district on those adjacent lots, they can, again, do a very similar thing on those lots if at some point if they redevelop. So, and providing harmonious transitions in scale and character between different zoning districts. We're not dealing with different zoning districts are all the same. Project contributes to the creation of visually interesting built environment, includes a variety of building styles and designs, well-articulated structures, goes on a few things again about the design of the project itself. Streetscapes, including street trees, lighting, pedestrian furniture are consistent with the area, and so we feel like we've done that. Street frontages are attractive, interesting for pedestrians, and provide for greater safety. Again, we feel like this building design has done that. Proposed landscaping plan is suitable for the type of project and site conditions. And we've looked at that. The design review board has looked at that and is satisfied with that. Project has been designed to be energy efficient, including but not limited to building siding, landscape design, for purposes of criterion. It references LEED, Gold Globe, and some of those things. So again, when you look through those criteria that you're given to review by, most of it's pretty straightforward. Again, we'll get back to a little bit about that, the scale, the massing, kind of the placement and setbacks. It becomes probably the main thing the board could look at in determining is this site plan appropriate, or are there some adjustments that should be made to better overall fit that context.
And I just might add from my experience, for the intended use, this is a very appropriate project. Now, I also, at this point, I'm assuming this is strictly the site plan. That means we still need to see some plans. It'll go through design and review board and a few other steps. So if there's something specific to that the neighborhood may have a problem with, there's still would be an opportunity for them to be vocal about that. Is that correct?
Chair, board members, yes, it has already been to the design review board.
It has, okay, thank you.
And they were pleased with, again, a few slight adjustments that they suggested to the building, but they were very pleased with it.
So based on our outcome here, then it goes to city council?
No, this is it unless it gets appealed to council.
There is no zoning, that's right. Duh. Yes.
But there is, I'm glad you mentioned that, the zoning ordinance does allow for any resident of the city to appeal your decision on a site plan to the city council. So that could happen if somebody doesn't like the decision that's made here.
All right. Very good. And again, I didn't hear anything from the public in opposition specific to the site plan. It was more the use. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant before we dismiss them?
Well, this will probably be to staff, so once you sit down, we can stand up forever. And I guess this is another, what do we do question. If it was designed, or if it was zoned 50 years ago with this intended use, and then it didn't develop that way, and now it's a bunch of, I think almost everything else on that particular block are all mostly single-family residents. I guess there's some to the
west is
to the west.
multi-residence
There's a few
buildings.
apartment buildings,
Yes.
but they're very small in scale, right? These are some smaller things. And so is what we're supposed to say, you know what, we feel like combining this in one big giant thing like this does not feel appropriate to the neighborhood? Is that something that we can give our 2 cents on, and that's why it comes before the board?
It comes before the board because it's just required to. As I mentioned before, if this were just purely applying the strict ordinance standards, we could do that. So there are some criteria here that give the board some flexibility in looking at and deciding, does this building, does this proposal meet the scale and massing that's appropriate for this area? But it's going to just be as it is today, given the fact that it is zoned multi-residence. Certainly if the surrounding properties were zoned single residence, staff would be taking a different perspective on this building and be looking probably for some things to be adjusted. It's that existing zoning that creates that extra challenge here at this time.
So would I be justified in saying it clearly fits the zoning, but it doesn't fit the neighborhood as the neighborhood's developed?
As the neighborhood's developed today, I could see where you could have some concerns about that, particularly as it relates to the residential immediately to the east. As Ms. Lozano pointed out, the housing to the north, there's a big vacant lot, and the housing to the north is pretty set back. Impact, I think, there is less, but the ones to the east, there's some impact there.
Okay. And if I was like, this project's troubled me more than any project should probably trouble anyone on the board, but I went and walked it earlier, and I looked at the La Mesita and how the La Mesita is very kind of appropriate to Maine, and then it kind of steps down to be more appropriate to the neighborhood as it comes back. And maybe that's another question, is there a way that it doesn't seem, I get your setbacks, and I get that it's trying to do that, but in one sense, you have all these single-family residences, and you're putting down a very large gated community right in the middle of them. That feels really, really off to me for what the neighborhood should have in it. I don't know if that's a question. That's a comment.
Sounds like that's an opinion.
That's an opinion.
Thank you, Tim. By the way, did you have anything else?
Well, then the other one would be, is there a process by which the city looks at some of these places that had this zoning and have developed one way and says, you know what, maybe now it's time to review these and say the neighborhood is this way, so we won't allow something like this to drop in because the plans are different now than they were 50 years ago.
Chair, board member, well, we don't have any formal way that we do that. It does come up from time to time on different properties around the town. We see that things have changed and maybe a different zoning would be appropriate, but the city's not typically in the business of going out and proactively changing zoning, particularly since the whole Prop 207 issue came in and the city changing people's zoning affects property values and all the legal issues that go with that.
So there's not a big process. So it's going to be, it'll come before us, and then we're kind of the ones that decide whether or not it should change zoning or that's appropriate use.
Right. At some point, the neighborhood's getting concerned about this and other things that could happen if the neighbors there get together and bring forth a zoning change to change the zoning of their properties to single residence so it fits the actual development pattern to keep anything else from happening, that would be very appropriate and would come to this board and to council for approval.
So that would have to be
Neighbor-driven.
instigated. Okay.
If you don't mind, along that same line, I think that's the whole purpose of having general plans. And is it not, how long ago was it that we updated our general plan? It was just a couple of years ago.
General plan was a couple of years ago. Again, the general plan itself took a more general approach and focused on character more than exact zoning. Before that, it was the sub-area plan for the West Main Street plan. One of the things we look at with that is the existing zoning pattern. We don't follow it strictly, but it is a strong indicator of what to expect. And so in this case, you know, the multi-residence is generally considered the future of this area because that's what the zoning pattern was.
So where I'm going with this, so then at that point, if the neighbors were aware of this zoning or should have known that the zoning was in place and concerned that this might happen someday, could they have come together and done some sort of an outreach during that phase of the plan to be vocal about it, that we don't want anything like this in our neighborhood? And would that have had any impact on the general plan?
Chair, that a little bit of a challenge to answer that one. Maybe the certainly it could have happened. Knowing how busy people are and the general residents' understanding of these processes, you know, it's not surprising that it didn't happen.
But I believe that's one of the purposes of the general plan, is to let neighbors come together and have influence as to what's going on in their area.
Sure, more so with the sub-area plan because you get a more specific portion of the city rather than looking at everything.
So that would be my thought, and that comes to mind as you were speaking, because in reality, we do have that ability as a group, and that's why we do the general plan. Now, I know this is specific to this case at this moment, because now, you know, it's facing them directly as opposed to a possibility in the past. But I still have to go back to the fact, despite how I feel for the neighbors and all this, it still is a use by right, and our goal is to approve the site plan. I have another question, John, sorry about that. One of the public members made this comment that I thought this was put to rest 10 years ago. Yeah. Do you have any idea what that was all about?
Chair, board members, Mr. Ellsworth and I were kind of recollecting that it does seem like there was another attempt to build an apartment complex or something on this site approximately 10 years ago. And Ms. Lozano was giving me this 2006. West Point Condos was proposed on this particular property and wasn't approved or didn't develop after approval, whatever the case may be.
It was approved.
It was approved, okay.
It was approved but did not develop?
Right.
Do you have any information on what was approved at that time? Was it?
I did not. I would assume it was economics, 2006.
That's why it did not develop, I would understand, but what
Right.
was approved was the question. Was it a similar density, a similar height, a similar
No, I
type
don't.
use?
I'm sorry, I don't have those
Okay.
details. It was a condominium project, so it was slightly different. I don't think then the density wasn't this high, but it was a condo project as opposed to apartments.
Okay.
But I would assume basic, just from history, 2006, they got their entitlements. Maybe they got ready to start maybe planning on building 2007, 2008, and then the economy
Right.
took a turn.
So the fact that it didn't build doesn't bother me because it happened to so many projects.
Exactly.
Question
Plus,
is-
we adopted a new, we updated our zoning ordinance, so they would have had to come back anyway, because their approvals would have been expired.
Okay. Thank you. Well, board members? any
I would
others?
like to just make one comment
Yes,
along that. I think we're going to see, especially along the light rail, there's going to be a lot of transitioning properties and neighborhoods, and that is part of the plan that the city has put together and part of the outreach as far as public that we did have an opportunity when we put those plans together years ago on the past. There's a lot of public outreach. Regardless of that, I think we're seeing neighborhoods and properties along the light rail that are going to be in transition because of the light rail. The light rail's purpose is to provide access, easy transportation access to residents. And as you notice, as you go further west, there is more density. And I think we will continue to see more density. And it is the objective of, I know in downtown as we go further east, is to build our density in our downtown. So we'll see more appropriate or more multiple story properties, whether commercial or residential, just because being in a developed area. Also, I know some people are opposed to this because it is a low income, and I think the idea of low income being poor quality properties, that doesn't necessarily equate. And I think we've seen a lot of properties that we've seen develop recently that have done very well, where they are very nice properties, even though they are low income. The way the tax credits are set up, there's a lot of extra points that go because the property is in a certain location to the light rail. So we do see that, but also just as looking as it, not as a board member, but more as a resident, that people that need access to the light rail, low income is more of a necessity, not just an amenity. So there is some purpose, and I know we don't want to have too much density of that, and that's not our purpose to decide what the income level is of the property here, but that we need diversity in our community, whether of all income levels. So I hope as the public, we don't put, our job as a planning and zoning is not to judge the income of that property. Is just if it's in accordance with the plan that the city has and if it meets the requirements. And it's just one comment. I live in downtown Mesa, and I have I live around near 2nd Street in Robeson area that has some very nice homes on it. I have apartments back up to my backyard. And it's fine. It's not the end of the world. It's just part of living in a downtown community. It's the mixture that we have. It's not something, I think, just because it's change, it's bad. So those are just my personal comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Steve?
Button here. I'm going to just add to what Ms. Duff is saying, and then say that because of the light rail, there has been a lot of transitions, and my concern yesterday was, of course, of how these properties are going to be managed. Now, there were some, properties here in Mesa. Specifically, I can tell you, Encore's done a nice job. They have some incentive programs. So is Save the Family Foundation over at Escobita has done a good job. And yesterday, I did drive over to the couple of properties that the applicant does have. They're a couple of older, it looks like they might be 30 to 40 years old, if I'm not mistaken. I went to both Missouri Crossing and Melrose Apartments. And they looked like they were well managed. They're well landscaped. I didn't see any trash or anything in the parking lots. There might have been a couple of window screens missing, things like that. But overall, I thought that the projects that they have there in Phoenix were certainly superior to the properties you find around Ella and May and Dora. So I think plus the fact that this property will be new, I think it will enhance the area. And because of that, if we do take a vote today, I'll probably be in favor of this project.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Any other comments? Shell?
No, go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry. Just a few comments. I became a little concerned about what I'll call the subjective nature, I guess, of the site plan criteria with regard to compatibility with the surrounding environment. And I can see that's hard to really address. I can see the side of what the neighbors are saying, but as Board Member Duff talked about, I can also see the possibility in the future and the purpose of the transit-oriented development corridor, the necessary changes, I think changes the city wants in that area of the transit, of the light rail, I mean. And the fact that it meets the development standards of the zoning district, I'm in favor of it. But I think maybe just we can look in the future about how we can better work with that criteria. I don't know if that's possible, but maybe something to think about in the future.
You know, I think that as time goes by, things change, and we on the board have seen, I mean, we've gone against city recommendations before. I can think of a couple of specific examples where we have done that, and we've done that successfully, and that was because of changes maybe in the economy, maybe what the city had envisioned before was not going to come around. So, I mean, there are some adjustments that we have to be made, and again, I look at this project in the area, and I don't know what else could go in there, for instance, and again, I go back to what I saw in Phoenix and the way the applicant managed their properties. I think it'll be an improvement to the area, and I think it'll be a good project.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, I might add, if there were an alternative development, it would still be a two-story project today with a multifamily use. And that's what these are being required for.
I don't think that's going to change, so.
I don't think so. If it were not this developer, it would be somebody else doing something similar. Dane, you're holding out?
I'm happy to make a motion unless there's other.
I think, Tim, you had a
I
question?
still have a thing or two.
Go
Is it
ahead.
my turn? Well, and if I understand John Wesley's comments and just discussing Michelle working with us in the future, doing something in the future, I think you said this is it. The city doesn't have a process by which they're going to go through and check these things out. The neighbors don't have a process that they understand by which they can go through and say, you know, we want our neighborhood to be this way. This is that process. This is it right now. We make the decision now whether or not this is something that the city does and kind of keeps going this way. You know, do we plop in a giant gated community in the middle of all these single-family residences or not? Is this appropriate? You know, the La Mesita is right on the light rail. I think it is appropriate for this. This is much further back. I think when I checked it, I think you have a mile walk to the station. Like, it's close to the rails themselves, but to actually get from the entrance of this to actually get to the station is like a mile or something like that, which in my mind says, well, no, this isn't exactly on the light rail. This isn't exactly part of this growth thing. This is something that's set back. This is in a more suburban neighborhood. So I don't see another process. There's not another process. This is it. If we think that this is the appropriate thing to do and to come in and put these things in, this is making the decision. If we don't, then we have to say, no, this isn't what goes here. This isn't how the city grows.
Then, Tim, if I might add, if you're going to say that, I'd say, so what does go here that's in line with market demand?
Well, the rest of the neighborhood has a bunch of single-family houses in it, right? And they got in there. So if someone came through and wanted to put 4 single-family houses on these 4 different lots, I think they could probably do it, and it would look just like the rest of the neighborhood, would it not?
So is it our job to limit the use and have an economic impact on the property owner? Because in essence, they have certain rights.
Right.
Despite what the neighbors feel and despite, you know, the appearance that this isn't a good fit, they still have those rights.
Right, and like when I was in New York, there was a big process that happened where they combed over everything and they checked all the zoning and they said, this is appropriate, this is not, we're now changing this to this zoning, we're now changing this to whatever. If we don't have a process like that, if this board is the only process that we have like that, then we have to start that process. Then we have to be in the process of saying, the zoning was appropriate 50 years ago, it is not appropriate today, and so we oppose the zoning, we oppose this kind of thing happening here.
We do have a process through the West Main Plan and the Mesa General Plan, and that does take public input, and that was put in place.
That's what the general plan's all about, is to give public input to changes, and so we can plan accordingly.
And it is within the transit-oriented development corridor area. I mean, it specifically is within that, even though it seems like it's a long way to walk, it's still in that corridor. I know that you walked it yourself and you felt, you know, it doesn't seem like it's really pedestrian-oriented, but it's just still within that corridor area. So that's just what I'm
Yeah, the public
leaning
could have
towards.
restricted that corridor to some other configuration and location. It is what it is. It's been through that process. I think we have an obligation to respect, the decisions that have already been made when they too have had the appropriate due process.
Well, that went through a process, this is going through a process, and we are now a part of that process. And now we're getting the neighborhood input. Maybe they weren't alerted about the general plan. Maybe they weren't alerted that they could, codify this neighborhood as something else. This isn't something that neighbors do in general. And so it comes before us now. Now we say, you know what, neighbors should be able to do this. And this is the board, this is where that decision gets made. And so we should be able to, the neighbors should be able to come before us and say this. And we should be able to say, okay, you're right. This part was not, the process didn't work properly. And now you're here talking to us about it. Now we can alter it.
My comment is just that we're all not going to agree. And as far as the processes go, there is a process and a public participation and a hearing for every step of the process. And it is also not our job to go back on other steps that were previously completed. So just at this time, we're at the site plan step. We're all not going to agree. And that's my piece.
What more do I say, huh? Well, I guess I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion, considering all that we've heard today from the neighbors as well as from staff and the board. There'll always be a number of constraints and thoughts and feelings about projects like these, but ultimately, as I see it today and understand it, and as I see the facts, I'd like to motion that we approve case Z16062 at the 2200 block of West Ellis Street, the site plan review with all of its conditions. I think I hit it.
Approval with conditions. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Please vote. Okay, motion carries. 6 in favor, 1 opposed. Thank you. So John, if I might recite what you said, if there are others, any of the public here are still in opposition or disagree with this outcome, they do have a right to petition. What does that become, a complaint?
Appeal.
And then appeal before the city council.
Yes, if someone wants to appeal this decision, we're checking real quick. We think it's a 15-day window they have to submit that appeal. It'll come to me, and then we can get it scheduled for city council.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next 2 cases, and the only reason we're discussing is we have the 2 cards here, is even though we're discussing them, we're not going to discuss them. But there were 2 individuals, I saw 2 hands anyway, that wished to speak today, even though the cases are being continued. This pertains to Z16056, and which are the 4A and the accompanying 5B dealing with the Warner Enclave project. Are those 2 individuals still here? Okay. There are 3, are there 4 of you? I would still suggest you have a right to come back when we hear it again. It's being continued next month, and speak. The things could change. You're going to have an opportunity to meet with the applicant. So
you might just go through each of the cards and see who wants to come speak at this time and who doesn't, and ask a question.
let's see, you do not wish to speak, you do not wish to speak. Let's see. Thank you. Jeffrey Tenney? No? Were you wishing to comment today, or wait?
I just had a quick question. I'm not,
And by the way, you're opposed to the project?
That's correct, yeah. It wasn't very clear to me why there was going to be a continuation, why we were going to come back.
Name and address.
What's that? Jeff Tenney, 11224 East Ramona Avenue. There wasn't a reason given for why we were going to come back in a couple weeks. I was
Go
just.
ahead.
Absolutely. Mr. Teddy, the reason for the continuance is with the neighborhood meeting having been last night, there was a mix-up in staff's understanding that some previous attendance at the association meetings that neighbors had been invited to those and they hadn't been. So we did get the minutes from the meeting from last night, but with that being such a short amount of time before this hearing today, staff recommended continuance to the next hearing so that the applicant had time to work with the neighbors, help you better understand the project before it moved forward to this board for any discussion or recommendation. So we have until February 15th with that continuance for you to work with the applicant and for them to reach out to you and have that conversation.
Thanks for explaining that. That's it for me then today. I just was curious why
Okay.
that was changed, but I am opposed.
Thank you, Jeff. Mark Funk? Here? Okay. Since we're, in that case, we're going to wait till next hearing. Let's see, David Kidwell? Are you wishing? I guess you are. As you come forward, you are, I might mention you are opposed to the project. Again, your name and address for the record.
My name is Dave Kidwell. I live at 4611 South Adele in Desert Valley, which is a project very near the issue in dispute or property in dispute. I am opposed to the project, and I have prepared a document. It was really my thoughts as I was trying to gather them after going to that meeting last night, or actually two meetings, and drew a comparison of the proposed property as to my property and similar properties in Desert Valley. There's two issues for me. One is I personally want to see the property rezoned as residential, which I understand you have not done. That's part of the decision you people have to make. Is that correct?
We're not rezoning it. I mean,
Pardon?
that's not,
But that is the ultimate request, is rezone
That's the
from commercial to
request.
residential.
Well,
the
who
applicant.
I must misunderstand then. Who does the rezoning then?
We recommend to council.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We provide recommendations to council for areas of rezoning. So if a
So
rezoning.
the council
if it's-
actually rezones?
If it's requested here, a rezone, which it is, then we would review it and offer the council either our feelings for or against it.
Okay, well, we're in the same boat, I think. I'm for rezoning it to residential, but I'm opposed to the present plan that the developer has put before you. And I will be here to speak to that. And the young lady will give you my feelings on it right now, but.
I would suggest you get with the applicant soon.
Oh, I will.
Okay.
I just saw him for the first time last night. But anyway,
Okay.
that's it. I'll be here for your next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
I thank you.
Lucy Kidwell, did you wish to comment today or wait? And you did mark your card opposed. Again, your name, address.
Lucy Kidwell, 4611 South Adele in Desert Valley. I will be here. My question is, there seemed to be a lot of discussion listening to you on the other issue about people getting the word. And we had a fairly good turnout, but a lot of it was by word of mouth. Luckily, we got a letter. And I do believe with Mr. Boyer that maybe we need to look at how we get the word out to individuals. Yes, this is the way we do it, and this is the policy. However, if it hadn't been by word of mouth, we wouldn't have had the people there. The other thing is, if we're going to continue this and discuss it on the 15th, I certainly would like to know that another meeting is going to be held with the individual that's planning the project, and that we do get the word out to all those that it's affecting.
Ms.
That's the
Kidwell,
only
I see
thing.
the applicant nodding yes. So this is your opportunity. You know, the reality is there is a public process so that there are postings, there are mailings with the whole idea that at least somebody will read them and then, like you say, be vocal and get the word out. That is the best mannerism. So at this point, you guys are started on the process. You've got some more time to act quickly and get with the applicant and express, voice any issues you might have.
I can tell you this, today, I met a lot of neighbors I didn't know because we've been passing out and expressing our concerns. So I'm hoping that we'll have even a better turnout. But I do hope that we will meet, and it's not one day before the meeting, because I think people need to discuss among themselves and decide that they need to make plans to come to this meeting and have their thoughts in order so they can articulate it to you and hopefully have some kind of an influence.
Thank you. We would hope so too, and we do listen to them. We really
Thank
do.
you.
At
As we
at
do.
these meetings, was there a sign-in sheet over there at all? Do you know if there was there? Was there a sign-in sheet?
Board Member Akita, it's included in the packet of information that was left for you downstairs. There is a sign-in sheet several pages into this citizen participation meeting for Warner Enclave. A few pages in, you'll see a sign-in sheet.
Chair?
So I looked in here and I didn't see it, so I'm just wondering.
It's not in the, it was given to you
Well, I
at the
mean,
study session right
I mean,
before
but
this
we need to
meeting.
get something like that. Because usually if I get a sign-in sheet, I will call 3 or 4 people, and I didn't.
Board Member Akita, it's,
Well, I know, but what about before, though?
this is why we've continued the case, is because we feel there's additional time needed to provide that communication with the neighbors.
So in reality, the system's working. That's what that's all about. That's why we have these community meetings. Even if it's at the last minute, it still puts all of this into effect.
Oh,
Just-
one question with the advertising on some of these things. I know the mailings and with large neighborhoods, someone's always going to get left out. And the HOA, I feel, is responsible for also advertising it when they get it to their members. But our neighborhood meeting, I know the hearings are posted on the site. Our neighborhood meeting, is the applicant required to post neighborhood meeting dates on the site?
Mr. Chairman, Board Member Sarkisian, the neighborhood meetings aren't posted on the site. That's strictly done through mailing, and the applicant handles all of those mailings. We handle the mailing. They provide the letters to us for the legal notification of the site, of the property for the zoning case, but they handle all the citizen participation. But they do provide us with reports and information. We received some of that information pretty late on this one, and so that's where the part of the miss happened.
And help me remember if I remember correctly, neighborhood meetings aren't necessarily required either. As part of this, just a recommended item, depending on the type of case, to help the neighbors better understand what's going on.
Board Member
In this case,
Russell,
no
you are
requirement.
correct.
Okay.
You are correct.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Mark McGotti, is that correct? Okay. Did you want to, you do want to speak? If you leave your, provide us with your name and your address.
Yes, my name is Mark McAvoy. My address is 11408 East Ramona Avenue in the Stratford Estates development, a development that does not have an HOA. I didn't learn about this until yesterday from a friend of mine. He had gotten a letter. I had not gotten a letter. Maybe we're outside of 1,000 feet. And so therefore, much of my information is hearsay. And if it is, maybe I'm misinformed on some things. But based on what I understand right now, I just wanted to present my opinions on the thing. I know you're going to recover it in February, but based on what I just saw here and the other thing, when we walk into this in February, it sounds to me like it's a roller coaster and we're on the downhill tread. So that seemed to me a little late to start getting your opinions in to influence anything, because I think you guys already have your minds pretty much set at that point. The thing I guess I want to say is that at first I was concerned that you said the staff wasn't going to interact and the developer wasn't going to interact on what was causing it to be pushed out to February. but you were interacting, so I'm very pleased to hear that. Because when I hear something like that, based on my 6 years in the Army in Washington, D.C., that says nefarious. But you guys seem to be open and honest and interactive now. So that's beyond the issue now. The thing I do say, though, is that after I retired from the Army, I ended up in Camden County, New Jersey for 13 years. And based on what I'm hearing about this, the density of the housing units and perhaps the quality of the construction that's going to be done screams the word blight. And blight is what eastern Camden County looks like. Camden County, New Jersey is blight. And blight breeds crime, and crime goes well beyond 1,000 feet, well beyond 1,000 feet. Since I didn't get a letter, it concerns me, and since I don't have an HOA, I had no other way of knowing about it. My neighbor 4 blocks down got a letter, but I was probably outside the 1,000 feet. However, a development like this would definitely impact my home. So I'm not trying to change county regulations. I'm just saying there needs to be a better method of notifying the neighborhoods. We have all those little basins there, and they've put county signs on saying basin number 5, and these are the rules for use of the basin. I don't know why every one of those couldn't have a notice of something like this. Maybe it's a cost, but then again, there's a cost to me if you don't let me know and you've decided before you come to the meeting. I just want to make that clear. I wanted to say these things up front. I think the density of this development, and from what I've heard, and perhaps the quality of the construction that's going to be there is a big, big concern. And you say that it's been put aside so we can work with the developer on community concerns. That may be fine, but I don't think developers are in the position that they're going to try to negotiate the bottom line of what they're wanting to make off this property. What they're going to do is they're just going to satisfy that we'll turn this east or west, or we'll put a little plot of grass here or a brick wall there. That's the kind of thing that developers do. What I want them to do is not build a high-density development there that's going to cause problems, serious problems for us. So I'll leave it there at that.
Thank you. Next, we have R.C. Hard. You are opposed to the project?
Yes, sir. My name is R.C. Hard. I live at 11544 East Sebring Avenue. I wanted to speak today because I am opposed of the project, and I also wanted to speak because I didn't know when I would get another chance to. I believe this project has not satisfied the citizen participation requirements set forth by the Mesa zoning ordinance. More so, I think the commercial zoning destination is more appropriate for the site, given its location of 2 arterial streets and the general lack of nearby services in the neighborhood. The application does not meet the public participation and requirements near in the intent nor the letter of 11-67-3. The citizen participation plan it was posted to the website on January 12th, which is 6 days prior to this hearing, and it did not schedule the citizen homeowner meeting until yesterday, one meeting prior to the public hearing. This is really insufficient time, to allow for efficient, early, and continuous public participation. This feels like it's just kind of crammed in here. So I don't think we had a chance to even defend ourselves on this. And then the existing zoning it furthers the extent of the general plan. Right now, there is no commercial space where there could be a gas station for 3 miles. There is no place in the East Valley that has this amount of dense residential homes without these services available. I have a degree in real estate, a 4-year degree in real estate from Arizona State, as well as a business degree with emphasis in economics. So I've studied this area quite a bit before my wife and I purchased back in May. So this road, Meridian, is supposed to connect to the 60 and extend to State Route 24. MAG says there's funding for State Route 24 to be completed in the next 5 years. This connection will happen in 2.5 miles from this proposed site. There is no gas station. There are no amenities anywhere. The next closest thing is the Fry's on Guadalupe and Signal Butte. So the general plan does plan for this, and it takes it into consideration, and it fulfills the need of the community. Changing it for residential just continues to saturate an already super duper dense residential area. And so I just wanted to get on record before anything was changed or moved up, or I just wanted to be on record.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Ms. Davis, if you don't mind, Chair.
Go right ahead.
This wasn't the first public meeting, was it? Were there not a number on this property prior to last night?
I believe there were 2 others, weren't there?
2 others before? Just wanted to make sure that there were many opportunities to.
The only problem is.
Could we get you up front?
The chair can allow you to speak.
My name is Dragomir Dan Mikalaki, for the sake of easy pronunciation. I bought the property 4 years ago. In the process, I tried to reach out to the homeowner association because I did not obtain a civil engineer that is going to provide and send letters. So we reached out to the homeowner association, and we went there and we presented what we were going to do. Most of the time they would put us on agenda, and when the time came for us to speak, they said they had too much of their own personal problems. We can come back later, or we can talk between them and explain what. So we had 2 meetings with homeowner association. And then this young lady from the city staff said, you know what, you guys got to have a neighborhood meeting. So we sent a letter, we posted a card, and we went there. The first question I got last night is, are you getting your money from the federal government? I didn't know what to say because I was confused. I says, let's find a room and I'll explain everything, how and what I'm trying to do. So I think there has been a misinformation about my particular property. So I am more than happy to have another meeting with a lot more time, so that way you guys know that we are trying to inform the public. And I scheduled that meeting last night because the homeowner association had the meeting too, half an hour after me. So I thought, if I'm ever going to get a lot of people, this is going to help. Well, it didn't turn out because somebody from homeowner association leaked on a Facebook that we're building a low income, and a lot of people came extremely upset about low income. So I don't want to prolong, but I think it's my duty, and I think the public should be clear of why and how far we got and why we extended this, because we want to make a play field good for me, good for the neighbors, and something that you people can understand.
Thank you so much. I would suggest that you get with that HOA group. Now they will listen to you, I would hope.
Get a telephone
There you
number of
go.
this man, because I would personally like to.
We don't have an HOA. You're not going to get with our HOA.
No,
Well-
I'm going to call you and tell you the date. If you just write me your name and telephone number, and I'll be more than happy to notify.
All right.
I have nothing to hide.
Well, that's okay. We'll-
For clarification, I did get one of his letters 2 days before the meeting. It was the first that anybody, I think, had ever gotten any of those letters, and it was difficult, and most of our neighbors didn't get them at all.
Oh, you know what? Let me just work through the cards here. In reality, we're going to have a whole other opportunity. Everyone that's here, you have an opportunity. There's your applicant. You know, don't let him leave until you talk to him.
Absolutely. I just wanted you to know, we're going to be,
You could state your
James
name.
Holland. My name is James Holland, 11504 East Rutledge Avenue. And I don't have anything to say other than I think that there is a lack of communication, but we're not seeing a guy coming here who's innocent. Those of us who were able to show up at the meeting were doing so dropping everything we had in order to show up at his meeting. We didn't receive adequate notice, and many of our neighbors didn't receive notice at all.
Fair enough.
Well, fortunately, we'll be continuing this anyway, so I'm glad. So I'm glad you brought this up.
Okay, Janelle Lively. Did you wish to speak or wait? If you were going to speak, I'd ask you to come forward.
Michelle Bridges, 4604 South Chatham. I did not receive any notice whatsoever. I live maybe 2 blocks from where he's going to be doing this.
Okay.
I found out about it on Facebook at 9 o'clock last night.
Fair.
The notices need to go to the whole neighborhood because this will affect everybody with that dense of a housing area going in.
Okay.
I just don't think the 500-foot is adequate.
Okay, thank you. I believe does that look like the gentleman who just spoke? Let's see, Karma Lively? She left. Let's see, Carolina Griffith?
She left.
Thank you. Randy Simons?
Right.
Did you wish to speak today, or can you wait?
To be honest with you.
If you're going to speak, you need to come forward.
My name is Randy Simmons. I live at 4343 Adele. I'm here because of my neighbors. I don't know what's going on behind us, where they're having the developments. I come to listen.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Then the last card I have left is Jill Simmons.
Jill Simmons, 4343 South Adele. One of the big concerns I had is that the paperwork that we received from the city said that this would be low-income housing. And my experience in the past has seen, I have seen low-income housing severely drag down neighborhoods. And, we worked really hard to get our place, and most of the people in our neighborhood have done the same thing. And so I am very concerned about that because the density of that neighborhood, it speaks slum to me. And so that's what I'm really worried about. Because there's, Meridian has quite a bit of traffic on it. It's only 2-lane. And as far as I know, no buses run down there at all. And I've always been told that low income had to have some sort of public transportation within a certain distance. And so I'm concerned about that. But mostly I'm really concerned about the density because there's a lot of houses packed into a lot of those subdivisions. And it just seems like it's almost a condominium type situation because they're that close, looking at the plans that we have been sent through the mail. And I was never notified of a neighborhood meeting either.
Thank you for that. For some clarification, I don't believe this is a low-income housing project, is it, Leslie?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not aware of what mailing she's referring to.
Did the
staff
city, to
hasn't
your knowledge, send anything out
mailed.
saying that?
I've never heard that about this project, so
I
that's a
thought it came
complete
from the
surprise
city
to me.
anyway. I don't have it with me, but it did say something about this is going to be a high-density, low-income area subdivision, and so that's not correct then?
That is not correct.
Okay,
No,
glad to
it's
know
a-
that.
Well, that's
There's
one item off
detached
your list,
single-family
huh?
homes.
Right, but like I say, Meridian is still just 2 lanes,
Okay.
and people seem to think that the east side of Meridian is specifically for their dumping, and so it's quite a mess, and so I need to speak with Public Works about that, but I think Public Works in Pinal County is where I need to go to. But it is an issue, and as more and more homes have been built to the south of us, there's been more and more dumping. And it's really a shame because it's a beautiful area and the view is wonderful. But when you get people who, I think we've got 10 Christmas trees out there that I've counted, and people clean their yards and they just go out to Meridian and dump. And I would really like to see some sort of a resolution to that, you know, whether it be through City of Mesa pushing Pinal County or what, you know, but that would be really nice to see somehow that gets cleaned up. But-
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Sorry, a little aside there.
No, that's okay. What I would add to this, all the neighbors that are here and those that have left early, you know, talk to your neighbors. You've got the applicant's attention, you've got time. Don't wait 30 days to make an outreach. I have a hunch he's very willing to listen. I would suggest you allow him to have the right to use his land that he's legally allowed to do with it. As you, for those of you here, you listened to the earlier case, focus on things that you really have some influence on and understand that any landowner has certain rights inherent with that ownership and find a way to respect that. So we look forward to seeing what you come back with, huh? In the perfect world, we'll all be a happy family, huh?
Can I ask, do you already know the date of the February meeting?
15th. But I would suggest you get with the applicant long before then.
We're gonna do that next week.
Okay.
At least the 14th.
All right. Okay, at this point then, I will enter, first of all, do we have any other discussion on these cases which are to be continued? Anybody?
Can I just ask one thing?
Yeah, we need the motion. I'm just asking.
Oh, can I just ask something about this? Is this an unusual amount of people complaining that the notification wasn't good, or is this kind of normal? Everyone always complains that notification isn't enough, and this is just the way it happens.
Board Member Boyle, this is highly unusual. In this case, staff was under this understanding that the neighbors had been invited to those two previous homeowners association meetings where the applicant attended. We found out today that that was not the case, which is why we immediately suggested continuance so that the neighbors do have time to gather their thoughts from last night's meeting and it could move forward. So had we known that sooner, we would have prompted that to happen much sooner. So it is a very unusual circumstance.
So it sounds like a mailing or another mailing needs to occur that's compliant, and you know, you'll have everyone checking your list, so let's make sure it occurs the way it should, sir.
There are two mailings that we have done.
Okay.
And the procedure is, we get the addresses, we show it to the city tells us, okay, now I'll mail it. It's not like we're creating in the back room and sending what we want to send. They're aware of what? They said 500 feet. So you go to Maricopa County map, you put a dot in the middle of my property, and then you go 500 around. And all those addresses just go, boop, 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 boop. They pop right there. You paste them, you send them. Then the next meeting, neighborhood, wanted 1,000. So we did the same thing. So now when these people are saying they did not get it, you can't doubt anybody. That's all possible. A lot of times mail come in my house, it's stacked like this. By the time I open everything, half of the stuff is worthless even looking at. So
Okay.
there is a chance that somebody might have threw it.
Sir,
So
I would
we
make-
will look at
Yes.
it in a little bit more detail. And how many feet would you like us to notify this time?
Sir, may I make a suggestion? When you do your notice to the neighbors, something I do when I do notices is, in addition to mailing them, you want to make sure you give them preferably is 10 to 14 days beforehand. Mail one to yourself so you have a postmark date.
I did. And also what I did to make it even more, I personally called homeowner association and I said, have you received? And they said yes, and we are notifying our
Okay.
members.
Mr. Chair?
Well, yes.
I think this is kind of beyond the scope of where we need to be
Thank
at
you
this
so
time.
much.
So-
You- Well, hopefully next month it goes very quickly, huh? Well, we'll see if you can do your magic, and that's the case. Well, we'd rather have them show up and have it be an agreement. All right, may I entertain a motion?
Quick question, if that's okay?
About this case? Can it? Well, come to the podium, but make it quick.
I know we've spent a lot of time on it, so I appreciate it. I'm just trying to understand what you had mentioned. We want to do our research.
name again, please.
Jeff Tenney, 11224 East Ramona
Yes.
Avenue. You had mentioned that we need to do our research and, of course, respect the right of that property owner.
So-
Since this is being rezoned from commercial, or proposed to be rezoned commercial to residential, what exactly are our rights, or where could we go to educate ourselves?
Yeah, that's something, he can meet with staff. We'll talk to you about it here in a minute when we close the meeting.
Okay, I appreciate
Thank you,
that.
John.
Thank you.
Okay, one more time, I would entertain or try to get to entertain a motion from
I'll make a
somebody.
motion to adjourn the meeting.
Well, why don't we've got to deal with this case first. Yes. So it's 4A and 5A, and they're both to be continued. I just need somebody to make a motion.
No.
I'll make a motion, Chair, if that's okay. I'll
Thank
make a
you.
motion to continue the case Z16056, as well as its associated preliminary plat for the next meeting.
Okay, which would be February 15th. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Michelle. Any other discussion? If not, please vote. The vote was unanimous. It will be continued. All right. Mr. West, is there any other business we need to discuss? Can we adjourn? If I get the motion. Okay, with Steve, I guess that was the handshake motion. Thank you. Second?